This is the Detroit Sports Podcast Network.
The biggest icon in podcasting.
Welcome in, everybody, to this week's edition of Doc and Jock. I am the Doc, John Macaroon. Joining me, as always, my cousin Adam, the Jock Strozinski. It's podcasting time, baby. We got to recap everything going on with the Detroit Lions, Michigan State, and we have to mix in the Red Wings. Major injury. Got to get a sense from my cousin Adam what's going on with them. Welcome him in. What's up, cuz? I know we got a lot to get to, but man, we're not as good as the Chicago Bears. How depressing is that?
You know, that was a game where I think all of us who contribute to the SI predictions, I think all of us predicted the Lions to win that game. And they went out and laid the biggest dud possible. That game was so frustrating to watch. There was a point in my afternoon where one of my girlfriend's dogs rolled around in some crap outside, like just rolled around in dog poop, and then came in the house, and she went to go pet her, and she was like, what did she roll in? And she, like, of course, smells her hand, and she's like, oh, no. I had more fun, and I got more joy out of cleaning the shit off of the dog than watching parts of that game. That game was just the epitome of frustration. If you were a Lions fan, you had to have wanted to throw your shoe through a TV. I don't know how you took it in, but I was pretty pissed.
Well, I watched the game, and obviously with the children around, I want my daughters to like it, but they can't sit through 3 hours of it. They can sit through a couple minutes, right? So Chicago gets the ball, and obviously the first thought that everyone had before the game, and I obviously wrote a column about it, I said, what's the one thing you can't have happen? Justin Fields cannot shine in this ball game. In essence, you got to lay this dude on his ass. You got to put him down. You got to get interceptions, pick sixes, confuse him, exotic blitzes, do some things. First play of the game, I remember distinctly, and I knew it. David Montgomery, I believe it was a handoff, goes out to the left, gets a nice healthy gain, and they're off and running. And you realize the flow of that game. Okay, a couple things are happening here. One, the Lions have always been a shit show. Two, they remain a shit show. And three, they just find different avenues of displaying their ineptness. When you snap the ball and the other team intercepts it, what more can you say? When your quarterback, every time he runs, you got to panic that he's going to drop the football. When you realize a decision needs to be made, and we're going to talk about Dan Campbell's decisions, but I don't know if now I've become fatalistic after 7-8 years of podcasting and damn near 35 years of watching. It just has the feel of if the Lions should do left, then right will happen. If right should happen, then left will occur. It just seems that it doesn't even fucking matter anymore. Whatever is the wrong decision or the wrong outcome is just going to happen. So that's how it played out. The Lions down 14-0 to the Bears, worst possible scenario. Have the ball, take advantage, get down to, they get down to the red zone, have a chance for points. Dan Campbell's like, I trust my offense. With Jared Goff, who's shown that potentially he might not be the most in 2021, the most accurate passer when it's fourth down, put it in his hands, and the ball gets tipped, and the Lions walk away with no points. So you recognize this game as one of those games where it's going to be more of the same. The secondary gets beat, no pressure. Justin Fields is doing his thing. Our secondary can't communicate properly. You have a guy in Bobby Price who they converted from a safety to corner, and that transition is going to take forever. And bottom line, the Lions lost by 10, and it was a game in which you had an opportunity to call the game right. But in the end, if you go for all those field goals, those 4 field goals, and you get those 12 points, you probably would have missed one anyway. You probably would have been down 7 if you would have taken the field goal late. And then Justin Fields would have then just did a pirouette. You would have had him like you would have had it at 3rd and 45. And you would have had Julian Okwara in there about to make a play. Look, finally he's going to do something and show why he was drafted. And then Justin Fields will just do like a 360 and throw it up to a guy that's tipped by the Lions and then shows up in the Bears' hands for a touchdown. That's just what's going to happen. So for us to expect that the Lions would have even stopped the Bears after getting it down to 7, please. They would have ran 15 plays and then all runs as well. They just would have ran it 3 yards, 4 yards, 3rd and 4. They just run it again. So, bottom line, you're not as good as the Bears. Matt Nagy outcoaches Dan Campbell. Justin Fields looked fine. They looked proficient. But bottom line, the Lions don't have enough of anything to compete. You take away TJ Hawkinson and you give a little bit of love to Khalif Raymond, but not enough collectively to...
Does this feel...
not enough collectively to win.
Does it feel like, I know they're only 0-4, but does it feel like this might be the equivalent, as far as a talent base goes, to that 0-16 Lions team? Could you see this team going 0-17?
I could see it because what's weird, too, it makes no sense. Injuries are flying left and right.
Everywhere.
You open up the Twitter machine and another dude's getting hurt.
Yeah.
Romeo Okwara, unfortunately, major injury. And Frank Ragnow.
It's really weird to think about it, right? Going into the season, we talked about the strength of this team being that offensive line. If there was a position where they could kind of absorb an injury or two, it would have been along that offensive line just because it was so deep. But you lose your starting left tackle, you lose your starting center. Now your starting right tackle, who's playing left, is dealing with an injury. You also look at your starting corner. He's down. The guy to replace him, he's down. You look at your starting tight end and arguably your best offensive weapon. He's dealing with an injury. It's absolutely nuts. Julian Okwara, you're starting, is he D end or is he a linebacker? Whatever position Julian Okwara is playing, arguably your best pass rusher. He's down for the season with an injury. Looking at your Trey Flowers, a veteran linebacker, or he's playing linebacker, D-end, playing outside linebacker. He's might come back, dealing with a bit of an injury himself. Like there's just injuries all over this team, and we're only 4 games into the season. And when you have a team that is, it's not really tipping the scales with talent, it's hard to overcome those, much less really good teams like Super Bowl caliber teams would have a hard time overcoming all of these injuries that this team is having. But that's still no excuse. This team lacks talent, and to be 0-4 at this point when you really had 2 chances to really be 2-2. I mean, look, this Chicago game, they should have won this game. At least I feel they should have won this game. I feel like it was a piss poor effort from Jump Street. They didn't start on time. You hear coaches say that all the time. This team didn't start on time in the first half. This team didn't start on time in the second half. This team just didn't show up, plain and simple. The Baltimore game, that was a game that we both agree they should have won that game, but costly decisions. And at this point, I'm pointing the finger of shame at Dan Campbell. I feel like his play calling is so bipolar. You have a game with Baltimore where if you kind of play for it and you play that 4th down and you keep pushing, you get a first down, you're going to seal the game. And instead he plays ultra conservative, ends up settling for a field goal. All right, fine, they go up, no big deal. Ends up calling a timeout instead of kind of pushing the gas when Baltimore has it and they're reeling. And next thing you know, Baltimore ends up converting on a 4th and 19 and ends up kicking a Hail Mary field goal to win the game. You go to this game, and there's a right way and there's a wrong way to kind of call plays in the NFL. And when you're only down by 14 and it's still early in the game, you don't press the gas and go for it. You take the easy 3 points, and you put your team in a position where they can try to capitalize later. Instead, this guy presses the gas. You don't get any points. You come away. Now that's like a gigantic momentum swing for your offense, who now feels horrible about themselves. And it's a huge momentum swing for the Chicago Bears defense, who, let's be honest, at certain points this season have really struggled. I mean, they got taken advantage of a week prior by a Cincinnati team who has a quarterback who's playing, I think it's like his 12th game. It's just, it's crazy to me how these play calls can just kind of swing the pendulum in a game. And Dan Campbell's not really helping his team out. Then you fast forward to the second half, and it's just kind of more of the same. Like, your offense hasn't been able to execute on fourth down, yet you want to keep going for it. Like, take 3 points. You're down by 10. Take the 3 points. You're here. Take the 3 points, and then if you can force a stop, you can then come back and try to pick up the next 7. Like, it's just, to me, that's smart play calling. That's how the game of football is supposed to be done. You're not good enough as a team. You're not good enough as a head coach to basically put your balls on the table, roll the dice, and say, hey, I'm going to lean on my quarterback, or hey, I'm going to lean on my offensive players, because they're just not good enough. You're not the Kansas City Chiefs, where you can go for it on 4th and 2 in a playoff game with your backup quarterback and make that play because you've got a guy like Tyreek Hill who basically catches everything thrown to him. You don't have guys like that. You're not a team that's well equipped like that. You don't have the ability to do that and be that aggressive. And I know last week I was calling for them to be aggressive, but when you're going to show up with 2 different game plans each week, like what are we doing? Like, what is your identity? You have no identity right now. And it's frustrating to me that your head coach is play calling and your head coach is coaching philosophy. And I think that's what it really comes down to. His coaching philosophy is so damn bipolar. And you mentioned it. You don't have the pieces.
Nope.
Jared Goff is not the guy to be able to execute in those moments. And look, I think Jared Goff on the right team, insulated the right way, could be a good quarterback. This team is devoid of talent. And it's not Jared Goff's fault. It's not Dan Campbell's fault. It's not Brad Holmes' fault. It's not necessarily anybody on this roster's fault. It's the prior regime with what they left you. It's the organization going to the very, very tippy top with Sheila, not making the right moves with Quinn Trisha. It kind of falls all back to that. This team doesn't have talent. It looks like this is that 0-16 roster just years later, and it's frustrating.
Yeah. It's when you look at identity, he's trying to go balls to the wall. That's his strategy, and it's great.
That's fine.
The number,
I like that. Look,
analytics say he's right.
An aggressive coach, but you have to have the right pieces to be able to execute it, and they don't have the right pieces to execute it. This should be. We talked about this when we were going through preseason. This is a team that needs to lean on its offensive line, needs to lean on its run game. At certain points, you need to pick and pop and throw the ball downfield. Right now, what he's trying to do is a total mischaracterization of what this team has as far as talent, and it's hurting this team. You can't put games in your defense's hands because your defense, 1, is way too beat up, 2, they're devoid of talent. You can't lean on this defense. You need to lean on this offensive line. You need to lean on this run game, and you need to take games out of your quarterback's hands that are very, very small, baby hands. You wrote an article about that, right? You have to basically take the ball out of his hands. And it's like, again, nothing against Jared Goff. It's just, we don't have talent.
Yeah, it's so messed up. I mean, it's so messed up in regards to how the Lions are. But it just has the feel of a team that doesn't care right now that they're going to potentially end up with the number 1 overall pick when you really objectively look at it. Now, okay, and I do want to address one tweet I put out there. I put out a tweet that this team is not coached well. What that means is, okay, if you listen to this podcast, obviously I realize every year you're going to turn over the roster, meaning you could have won this game against the Bears. That's it. Not talking about the rebuild, not talking about who I thought was going to be on the roster, just this 60 minutes of football. Dan Campbell said it wasn't one of his best performances coaching. And everybody's messaging, oh my God, this team sucks and da. Bro, there is a roster of people that can play football. And collectively, I'll say it now, if Robert Saleh coached that team, I've been watching, I've not adopted a B team, I've adopted a B coach. meaning I'm listening to all his pressers, how he gets down, how his team plays. I'm watching the Jets games. Bro, that defense plays like its hair's on fire. They blitz nonstop. They beat the Titans. They are upbeat, and they have a young quarterback who fucked up and threw 4 interceptions, but came back and got control and threw the ball deep and had something. So what's the difference here is that Dan Campbell is zigging when he should be zagging when he should be zigging, and when he sees that his running attack gets 4 yards of carry on 4th and 1 late in the game, you call a pass from Goff to Amon-Ra St. Brown. All you got to do is hand the ball off to Jamal Williams. He'll get you 3 yards. Use your line. Zig when you need to zig. Zag when you need to zag. That's all we're saying. The team is not disciplined enough. Okay, and you guys all believe this team is coached well? As I was typing furiously late in the game, because you got to meet a deadline to get the story out pretty much as the clock hit 0-0, the same dude, I think number 51, lined up offside. Then something happened. I think they called a timeout or some weirdness happened, and then he did it again. People were blowing up Facebook like, what the hell? The same dude went offside in this back-to-back plays. What the hell's going on? So the team is not performing at the highest level of coaching that you should expect from a head football coach. That's all we're saying. Now he's learning, and there are opportunities that he'll get better. You know, he can't end up like this forever. But yeah, at this point in time, this has the feel of a team that's going to lose a lot of games, at least maybe 8 in a row. I don't know. Maybe they'll play better against Minnesota. I don't see it, but
I didn't look crazy. We both agreed it was going to be bad, but there are parts of this season, and we're only 4 games in, where I didn't think it was going to be this bad.
Yeah, this bad. Yeah, this bad.
Like, I love Dan Campbell. I think Dan Campbell's great. I think he's a culture builder. I think Dan Campbell is a guy who is one, he's interesting. I think if you're a writer like you are, I think he's a guy who gives you a ton because he's very transparent and he basically tells you what's going on. He's not trying to hide anything. He's not this cloak and secrecy type of deal like Patricia was. I think he is a very interesting character. That being said, there's a time and a place where you got to just call a spade, and what he's done the past 2 games has not done anything to help put this team in a position to be successful. He has hurt this team by either going completely off script with what you should be doing or just kind of switching his entire coaching philosophy in the middle of the game. To me, and I think you said it right. It feels like this is a team that has 0 expectations on this season. And what I mean by that is, I'm not saying that they're not out there trying to win games, because if you're going out there and you're not trying to win games in the NFL, you're going to get your players hurt and you're going to get your players killed. And that's not what he's out there doing. He understands that. But I think this is a season where he and maybe the front office just has 0 expectations for coming away with W's. And they're okay with that. They've already got their minds made up about that. And I think what you're seeing is Dan Campbell go out there and just kind of throw stuff at the wall, see what sticks. And if it sticks, cool. I'll add this to my coaching repertoire. If it doesn't stick, well, we'll throw it away and we'll just try something else next week. And you can't really do that. You can't have it both ways. You can't talk about biting kneecaps off and dropping elbows and being ultra aggressive and drinking 18 cups of coffee and just go, to then come out and basically play ultra conservative. But also at the same time, when you're in a position to put points on the board and your team is down, you can't just leave those points on the field, because that's just not smart. Like, there's a time and a place for everything. And I feel like he's just kind of like doing it all in reverse. And he's just trying to figure things out as he goes along. And that's not okay. That's not okay. You watched all his games in Miami. Did he try this stuff in Miami? Did he seem like he was out of sorts when he took over Miami?
In the first 4 games that I saw, I took in every game. I think it went that way. But unfortunately, Tannehill started lighting up the interception sheet, and they kind of went back to running the football. So it's a situation in which Dan Campbell is really doing it game by game, situation by situation. And it's like trying to put a puzzle together, but unfortunately, you crash all the pieces together. And you know when you bend one and you just realize, oh, shoot, you lost a couple?
Yeah.
It's just a puzzle that can't be put together correctly ever. When you need to stop the run, then the running game is the run defense is poor. When you need to play ultra conservative, then boom, the opponent gets out to a 17-point lead. It's just a team that, again, befallen by injury. And this is not the team that they thought they'd have. They thought they'd have Okuda. They thought they'd have Romeo Aquara for the entire game. They thought they'd have Frank Ragnow. And they thought they'd have Terrell Williams. And they don't. So they're just like, I think they recognize after the first couple games, oh, it's bad. It's damn bad. Let's just try to and save face here.
That was the guy I forgot. I totally forgot that they lost their number one wide receiver.
Yeah, they lost a lot. So I think at this point there's a recognition that, there's no expectation. Seriously, cuz Dan Campbell should have accepted a 7-year contract, because when you get that quarterback, if you had a little bit of foresight with the Stafford trade, a rookie quarterback coming in after a year or two is not going to just light it up. So you're talking about this year, next year, potentially struggling, not making the playoffs. You can't realistically make the playoffs until 2023.
Do you think you brought up quarterback, and I do want to go back to wide receiver, because I think that they might have something in their wide receiver ranks, but you brought up quarterback. You brought up possibly drafting a quarterback. I myself, I've been on record, and I kind of want to see where you're at. I don't believe they're drafting a quarterback this year. No matter, even if they finish with the first overall pick, I don't think they're taking a quarterback this year. I think your quarterback's coming out of next year's draft. I think they are married to Jared Goff for this season and for next season. And I think what they'll do is they'll kind of pick up the pieces depending on where everything falls the following season and draft their quarterback then. I think that this team is so low on talent. And what you're seeing with the quarterbacks this year in college football, there's really nobody out there who's like, oh, that's the guy we got to get. Like there's nobody out there that is the Joe Burrow. There's nobody out there who's possibly the Tua. There's nobody out there who's like the Justin Herbert. There's nobody out there who might be the Patrick Mahomes if they kind of fall, or there's nobody out there who's like the Dak Prescott who, you can get him a little bit later. It just, to me, there's this batch of quarterbacks just isn't very good. And look, I can be proved wrong. It's very early in the college football season. I can be proved wrong. Plus, we got to go through the combine and all that. And somebody's going to rise. Somebody always does. But none of these guys right now really give me any hope that, hey, that's the guy that the Detroit Lions have to go get.
Right.
And looking at this roster, you need to plug so many damn holes everywhere on both sides of the ball that I don't think it is wise to necessarily invest in a quarterback right now when you can go get something else that might help change your franchise.
All right, hit me with the positive. I like to hear this. What's a silver lining? Who we find?
Okay. So like me and you we were messaging back and forth, and I told you that I think that they might have something in their wide receiver ranks here. I think they might have a piece, all right, for the future. I already talked about all the holes that they have to plug, but I think that they might have a piece. Quintez Cephas, when given the opportunity, has shined in back-to-back weeks. Now, we've talked about this before. I think the guy is he's basically your number one right now, because your number one went down with an injury. The guy seems to be made out of glass and is constantly broken. But I think Quintez Cephas, again, I really liked him coming out of college. I liked him. I liked that draft pick when they selected him. I always thought he was more of a slot wide receiver. I think he's a guy who's getting a little bit more comfortable playing that outside. I think he could be a solid number 2 on this team. Now, obviously, he's not a number 1 guy. He's not the guy who's gonna command that double coverage. He's not that guy who's gonna command to be bracketed. But I think he's a guy where you put him along somebody who's pretty good, and I think he will excel even more than he's excelling right now. I think he's doing a very nice job with I'm going to be generous, a B-level quarterback. And I think he's a guy who is doing a really nice job basically being your main deep threat on this roster. And again, that's not necessarily a role that I feel he's comfortable or he's well suited for. I think he's more suited for being a slot wide receiver. But I think you're seeing some growth here with him basically taking on that role and developing. I also think Amon-Ra St. Brown, I could see him possibly being your slot guy. He could be your possible third wide receiver. But they definitely need to go grab somebody who's, like, I'm going to throw a name out there, and I'm not saying go get this guy because you're not going to get this guy. But a guy like Devontae Adams, a guy like a Tyreek Hill, a guy like what's his nuts over in Seattle.
Metcalf,
DK Metcalf. You need to go find a guy like that. And like I know, like stud wide receivers like that just fall off trees, right? But what I'm saying is you get a guy who's got speed like that, who's got good hands, who can help stretch the field. That basically opens up everything in that middle area for a guy like Quintez Cephas. That also opens up things in the slot for a guy like Amon-Ra St. Brown. And I think those guys would look much better. And I think that they are some building blocks that you might have on this team as far as what you've got as far as weapons go. Am I crazy? Am I a lunatic here?
Absolutely not. I think that the race for number 2 is definitely there. Amon-Ra played well. Khalif Raymond. You have the makings of a core, but a bunch of role guys. I mean, Khalif Raymond's really a number 3. Amon-Ra St. Brown, number 3. Quintez Cephas, number 3, number 2. You need 2 new receivers. A big body one that can potentially knock over some of the secondary, and then you need potentially a guy like Amari Cooper, a superstar. And you're going to get him. You remember, you got a lot of draft picks. So it's really weird how this year has the feel of like an erased year that nobody's ever going to remember. It was just, okay, Dan Campbell's first year, he said a bunch of things, and no one remembers anything. So going forward, yeah, I think Cephas will be part of I think that Cephas will be part of it. And yeah, I think that if you get a mobile quarterback like a Justin Fields, Jalen Hurts, I said it throughout the game at Detroit Podcast. Man, it's nice when a quarterback can elude the pocket and scramble and keep a play going. You need that. You need that stud quarterback. And look, everyone knows it. Everyone's drawn their conclusions. And I just think that to keep people's interest, that's all you need is you needed that win against the Bears to keep people's interest. When you lose against the Bears, dude, people are already talking about draft needs and mock drafts and stuff like that. 4 games in, I tweeted, I'm like, I'm not used to the calendar flipping this fast. I'm so interested. People aren't. They're like, okay, this season's done. They're like, okay, get to the next thing. And they're going to wait. They're going to wait for free agency in the draft because it's going to be a bunch of losses. It's going to be a bunch of whacked out plays and a bunch of more of the same and to see who slots in where. Yeah, Cephas is good. Amon-Ra's good. Khalif Raymond's good. You know, you have the makings of an offense, but unfortunately, you got to be able to call the plays correctly when you need to. And you got to start. You got to and Jared Goff talked to the media on Wednesday and he said, yeah, we kind of got to put our foot, on the pedal and start the game faster. Yeah, you can't start halves without scoring points. It's kind of the name of the game here. So, but they're going to go on the road to Minnesota. It's just going to be really tough. Like I said, the next big thing I think people are going to pay attention to is the reunion with Stafford at the end of the month. But 0-8, you're staring at it. It's just, you got to just pay attention to a couple players here and there, and that's what we're going to start doing. We're going to pay attention to Derek Barnes, Aleem McNeil, Levi Onwuzurike, Amon-Ra St. Brown. We're going to look at the rookies, see if Penei Sewell ends up on the field, what that transition is going to look like. So a couple storylines ahead for the Lions, but wins and losses, sorry, guys, I don't see it. Just call the game right, Dan Campbell, make the decisions, and maybe dial back the aggressiveness to the point where take some points. It's okay to lose by 7 as opposed by 10. You know, it's okay. It's not a big problem. You don't have to have, this is not the Jets, all gas, no brakes. You know, because here's what the Lions are. All gas, crash into Allen Park. That's all gas, flip the ramp and flip the car over and the car blows up and blows up the city with it. You know, that's what the Lions do. They don't just take out their own car. They take out 5 cars with it. You know what I mean? So it's just the way it is. Everybody's just going about their business, and it's more of the same over there at Allen Park. But make sure you pay attention as the season progresses. Maybe they can take advantage of Kirk Cousins, you know, because of the fact that he's a sitting duck quarterback as well. But, you know, I expect the big things from Cook, Thielen, Jefferson. I expect another loss in the neighborhood of 7 to 14 points this upcoming week. Now, before we start talking about the Tigers, the Red Wings have started preseason action, taking on the likes of the Blackhawks and the Penguins in their typical preseason routine. But unfortunately, a major injury. Your best player, the guy that people were really happy that got a contract and Steve Yzerman made a move for, Jakub Varna, freak injury, hurts his shoulder, and is out for 4 months. I mean, the best case scenario, he comes back after the Olympic break is what I'm hearing. What was your reaction to that, and how snake-bitten are the Red Wings because of the fact that, potentially there's an opening for another player who we'll discuss, but man, how big a loss was Varna when you heard the news of a major shoulder injury? I was bummed out because he was the box office. He was the guy that we could go down to LCA and say, show us what's up on the ice. Not happening.
He was the guy who last year, when he was brought in, basically led your team in every offensive category. He was the guy who, like you said, he was the moneymaker. And to lose him for 4 months, like, that's essentially half your season. He's going to be down. That sucks. Like, that is tough. I was shocked. I heard he had a shoulder injury, and I was kind of like, all right, shoulder injury. We'll just kind of see what happens here and how this plays out. But it doesn't sound like it's good. Look, you don't ever want to lose a top forward like Jakub Varna. This is a guy who basically put up a point a game when he was wearing the winged wheel, and he was your best offensive player, like better than Larkin, better than Mantha when Mantha was here, better than just about anybody else. And I don't know how you replace that. I don't know if you can replace that. I think this will be one of those things where the Red Wings are just going to kind of have to weather that storm for those 4 months and hope when he comes back, he's ready to go. It's a crucial blow, though, to this team for sure. All that being said, I know you want to get into this. They got a young guy who looks pretty silky out there with Lucas Raymond. Any chance he makes the roster, you think? The opening day roster?
I'm telling you, a lot of people paid attention to Lucas Raymond, a guy that maybe could fill in, could be a guy to take advantage. I'm not certain yet he's going to make the roster based on how the Wings operate. They take forever to marinate on these guys, and they really want them to get a plethora of experience. But I'm impressed. I think this is a guy, you found someone, somebody that can move, has the potential to, really create and make a name for himself. So I'm happy because whenever someone gets hurt, it's never a good thing, but it provides an opportunity for somebody else. And Lucas Raymond is someone that people are drawn to. And online, at least, people are like, whoa, what's up with Lucas Raymond early in the preseason? But see, that's the problem. Preseason, you kind of get like that notion. You get lulled into that false sense of security when you see these players play, because when the regular season starts, it's like, okay, everybody eats their spinach and they start whacking people. You know what I mean? It seems like the speed picks up 10% more in the regular season. And just because someone performs well in early games in the preseason doesn't mean a whole heck of a lot. You know what I mean? So I kind of have doubts that he'll make it, but we'll see. We'll see if he makes the roster coming out because of the fact that it's a logjam. But from what you're hearing and from what I've read, it kind of seems like another year of low expectations, which is really weird because it's been such a long time for the Wings being in the postseason that we were just talking when we started this podcast. They were wheeling, dealing, making moves still, and getting into the postseason because we're about to be approaching 6 years without being in the playoffs. Mm-hmm. Dude, that is crazy how
That's
fast.
right.
Yeah. So I hope that's not the case, but that's kind of what I'm getting a sense of. This is kind of another incrementally kind of a year where you build up a little bit, get out of the 70s and maybe get into the 80s in points, but I'm not reading a lot of projections that have the Wings in the playoffs.
Yeah, I mean, look, you end up losing your top line left winger in Varna. You've got a team that really kind of feels like it's in flux. And to be honest with you, I don't really think they infused a ton of talent this offseason. So, yeah, I think expectations being low are about right. To me, when we talked about this last year, and I think Steve Yzerman basically kind of let everybody know what was going on. Like, I think this roster and this overhaul is worse than he thought, and I think it's worse than all of us thought. So we all expected basically by next year this team should be competing for playoff spots and making some noise. I think Steve Yzerman basically said, hey, guys, we need to add at least another year to this. So that being said, I think it's going to be really similar to what happened this past year. I don't expect a ton of movement. I don't expect them to really be chasing anybody late in the season. I really feel like this year everybody kind of needs to lower those expectations, and it's just going to be another one of those developmental years. You're going to hope to see Dylan Larkin start to do a couple of good things. Look, what I've seen out of Dylan Larkin so far in the preseason, there's a couple things I like. This is something that I bitch about with Dylan Larkin a lot. This is something that good goal scorers do. Good goal scorers go to the middle of the ice and they go right to the net. A couple of the highlights and a couple of the games that I've seen Dylan Larkin start to do that more. Dylan Larkin was notorious for basically getting the puck, skating up the boards, going around the net, basically curling out, and then trying to get a shot. What really good game-changing goal scorers will do, and I don't think that's necessarily his game. He's probably a number 2 center on a good team, maybe a number 3 center on a Stanley Cup winning team. What really good goal-scoring centers will do, though, is they will drive hard to the net, make a move, and tuck the puck behind the goalie. He's doing that a little bit more. So you need to see more growth like that. You need to see more development like that. I think once you start to get those things, that's when you can start kind of talking about, chasing for playoff spots and getting into contention to either really disrupt somebody's season at the end of the year or yourself find yourself in the playoffs or just kind of in the hunt. So I just don't think this year is the deal. I think Steve Yzerman tried to basically hedge his bets last year with what he said when he traded Anthony Mantha. I thought the Mantha trade was great because you ended up getting a guy like Vrana. Vrana goes down early this year. You got a guy like Lucas Raymond who maybe makes the opening night roster. We'll see. It's just going to be one of those things where I think you just got to kind of pump the brakes a little bit. This is going to be this team is in dire straits and it is in dire needs of talent, and he's trying to get as much talent here as possible. And I also think it's kind of a timing thing. He's trying to time everything out to where all these guys can kind of come up at about the same time-ish. So that way you've got everybody kind of growing together and going together, and I think that's what he's looking for here.
Okay. Developmental year. Pay attention to some of the scoring and defense and goaltending and things like that. So we'll pay attention as the season progresses, mix in some wings here and there, but points not aplenty.
Right. You get a guy like Mo Seider up here, right? Mo Seider becomes an integral part of your defense. It becomes one of your top 4 defensemen on this team, right? First season up with the big guys, learning a couple of things, basically helping to build for next year. And then obviously Hronek is probably your best defenseman. So now you've got him and you've got Seider basically going next season. If that's your 1-2 combo next year, I think you're in a good place. I think you're seeing some growth. You're seeing some development there. I think that's good. Obviously you kind of have to fill out your back 4, but what I'm telling you is if you can get Mo Seider up here this year and he's a top 4 guy and next year he's a top 2 guy, you're headed in the right direction.
All right. Now, turning our attention finally here to the Detroit Tigers, you have to give kudos to AJ Hinch to get this team to be 77-85.
Bravo.
Yeah.
Bravo.
The first month you could wash. I mean, it's a transition. And remember, that team was on pace to lose a bunch of games. That team was not the same team that finished the 2021 campaign. AJ Hinch quickly realized, we got to DFA a bunch of people. Remember, when people on Twitter don't understand nuance, okay? They look at hard words and each and every syllable. That roster, that lineup with Wilson Ramos in it would have finished with a bunch of losses. AJ Hinch quickly realized, no. This is not anywhere near Major League Baseball caliber. He wiped it out. He DFA'd people. Buck Farmer finally was jettisoned out of here. My new favorite word, jettisoned. Get out. How many years were we saying, get out, Buck Farmer? How many years? 5 years was how many years I was screaming into this microphone. So when you read that I said that the Tigers were one of the worst teams ever, if that roster was there going through the season, they would have finished with a bunch more losses. But AJ Hinch is smart. He's wisened up. He realized, I want some players that are going to work hard, that are going to listen to managerial coaching. Pitching is going to be the name of the game, and we're going to take advantage of every situational advantage that we have with analytics, and they were able to do that. He overhauled the roster within a couple weeks after the first month, and the team started winning, and they started competing against the likes of Tampa Bay and some of the upper echelon teams, and they won some series. The quest for 500 was sweet. You had an opportunity now to see Casey Mize and Tariq Skubal. You have an opportunity to see what your hitters look like in the minor leagues. So things are looking up, but we do have a problem on our hands. 77 and 85. We are now at a critical point. Is Chris Ilitch going to open his wallet and drop some cash to potentially take this payroll over $100 million? Well, Al Avila was asked that after the season, and he kind of in essence said, we're not going to spend like gangbusters. We're going to be building responsibly so this thing is sustainable. So that leads me to believe maybe one huge contract and then take on more players that are from the minors from our own system, maybe the likes of a Torkelson or Green, a little bit more in terms of moving up through the system here. I think that, yes, Chris Ilitch is going to spend, but not to the degree that's going to potentially rocket ship this organization. So you're looking at the Wings and the Detroit Tigers, and they're kind of in the same boat, meaning they're taking steps. We want them to go from step 3 to step 6, but I think they're only going to go from step 3 to step 4. But you have a good manager. You have some good pitching. I think it's reasonable, in my opinion, to just expect any win total above 82, between 82 and 90 wins next year. If you don't make the playoffs, that's fine. As long as you see development, that'll be a success. I don't think that it's going to be as fast of a rebuild as people would like. Carlos Correa could be the guy that they drop the cash on, which is fine. If they only make one splash, one big contract and a bunch of little ones, you okay with that? Or you're going to be on the train of, hey, Chris is cheap and he's taking this thing. He's not competing at the level that would allow for the Tigers to compete.
I think you have arguably the best manager in all of Major League Baseball in AJ Hinch. He basically took chicken shit and he served you up chicken salad, and he served you up chicken cordon bleu, and he served you up chicken piccata, and he served you chicken Caesar salads every single night. He took a roster that was, let's just be frank, it was brutal. You've seen what that first month gave you. It was awful. And he basically turned the entire season around, and he gave you a season that you as a Tiger fan could sit down, watch a game, and enjoy. You as a Tiger fan could go to the ballpark and not feel bad about investing your money. He gave you something to hope for the following season. Now, I'm not saying that you need to go out and you basically need to spend like a wild man. You don't need to spend. Chris Ilitch doesn't need to spend like Mike Ilitch spent. But if Chris Ilitch doesn't open up his pocketbook and this team doesn't go out and get at least 3 free agents who are going to make an immediate impact on this roster, what are we doing? Like, what are we doing? I don't necessarily care if it's Carlos Correa. Like, everybody's hyped about Carlos Correa. I'm not. I don't think Carlos Correa would be worth the money. I think in the end, you'd probably be looking at something similar to what you would end up getting with Miguel Cabrera, right? Where you got this really inflated contract, and you're kind of looking at it, you're like, is it really worth it? It's not really worth it. Can we somehow move away from it? We can't really move away from it. Oh, crap. We're stuck with this. All right. And that's kind of where you're going to be. On top of that,
you know what? There's an opportunity.
I really think
fast.
Wait for the contract to fall off.
Yeah, hold your thought. What you do is, I think you pursue him, but you have to find that sweet spot where you make him an offer that you can publicly say you made, but you know it's not enough that somebody else would not be potentially scared to top. You know what I'm saying?
So you need to pull like a Mike Ilitch with a Sergei Fedorov type move or something like that, huh?
Yeah, a PR.
Like, why would you do that though?
Well, because
I don't think that cool. So like for PR and public perception, that's just stupid. We're talking about trying to win baseball games here. We're talking about trying to possibly compete for playoff spots in World Series. I just think that's dumb. Like, why would you waste your time doing that? Like, go into this offseason and be freaking serious.
Well, because
don't be a joke. Don't be a clown show. That's clown show moves.
No. Well, look, you're saying it too. I believe that Carlos Correa is going to want big time dollars, and the fans like him. the fans are like, oh, we like Carlos Correa. Go get him. He fits a need. He knows AJ Hinch. So what you do is you offer him a contract that potentially is flattering, but not so absorbent that somebody else can't top it so we can go somewhere else. You really want him to go somewhere else. Bottom line, you don't want to sign him to a long-term deal. You want to kind of build and hope that your guys end up developing. So you still got to actually, show people that you're trying, but you actually, you don't go in and be like, okay, we're going to offer you 10 years, 250. You go, okay, we're going to offer you 5 and, 17 million and whatever that number is, and somebody else can top it. Is what I'm saying, is that you have to, at least every offer that you make for a free agent, you got to put out there that, hey, we did this, so that people can at least think you're trying. But I think they're going to make some moves. I think they'll try and go out there and handle business. I think that AJ Hinch has the ear of the organization, and they're going to handle business. I like Ryan Garco. I can't believe he got added to the team. I was a fan of Garco when he was with the Angels and all that good stuff. So I'm happy with that in terms of the development. The minors are good. Yeah, I just think the same thing with the Wings. Another year, and that's what my expectation is that you're going to compete to at least have over a 500 record, but I don't see the playoffs. So do you see a different pathway for the Detroit Tigers to potentially get in the playoffs a lot faster if they make a couple more moves? Is there a name that you want to break the bank? Do you want to play GM and start spending? Start spending Illich's money. Who we getting?
I don't have a name, but here's the thing. I think what you have to do, I'm going to give you a couple positions, right? You need to go out and you need to grab a couple of guys who are going to help this team offensively.
Yes.
Obviously, shortstop is a huge weakness on the team. I don't know if you have anybody on this roster who doesn't wear cement for shoes that plays shortstop. So you do need somebody who can provide you with a little bit of a bat and be able to field and play shortstop, but you also need an outfielder who's got a bat. You need actually you could probably use 2 outfielders that have a bat. That'd be nice. If you can go get a third baseman, like totally sure up that side of the field, get a third baseman who can swing a heavy bat. I think that'd be great. I think as far as I think your catcher's fine. I think depending on what they do at Torkelson, I can foresee this organization really manipulating Riley Green and Torkelson's time, so they don't have to basically pay them. So I'm not expecting Torkelson and I'm not expecting Green to start with this organization. I anticipate them being brought up some point during the season, though. But I think Torkelson is going to be your first baseman, and if he keeps hitting, he'll be fine. But it just you need to get a couple of guys who are going to really help impact the offensive side of the game. Like you don't have. It was weird when I went to the game. I took my 2 dads to the baseball game, and we're just kind of in awe looking at the batting averages. You know how like on the big screen out there in left field, they've got the screen and it kind of shows you everybody's batting average and just kind of runs down it all. Like everybody was like a sub 250 hitter.
Yeah, right.
And just like there's just like nobody who can hit for average, and really nobody has any power. So you need somebody to come in here and be able to hit for average and be able to give you a little bit of power, And like I think what you have with AJ Hinch is a guy who will put guys in the right spot and allow them to succeed and help the team to succeed. But you still need talented guys, and they just don't have. There's another team that doesn't have a talent-rich roster.
It was a good year. It was a good run. Definitely impressed by AJ Hinch and the analytics that he brought to the game, the aggression that he brought to the game, and I think that he gave people the opportunity to really live up to their strengths with Akil Baddoo, with Derek Hill. You have an opportunity now to move forward and really bring the roar back to Comerica Park, and I'm happy. I think that absolutely after all the turmoil, all the struggles with the Detroit Tigers, to have this, it was an amazing opportunity to watch and to get down there when I did. Unfortunately, when the Lions start, you kind of fade off a little bit, but still have an opportunity now to see this team move forward in a right direction, trending upward. But I think that obviously when it's years upon years, you got to look at it like it's just year 2 of AJ Hinch and not year X and Y of Illich and Al Avila. So we'll see what happens. At least the Yankees lost and had all their money wasted and flushed down the toilet. And to end the podcast, I want to laugh. We got to laugh at the Yankee play-by-play guy. I think it was John Sterling, I believe.
Yeah, it's John Sterling.
Sees the ball, and I think makes the most egregious error that you can make as a broadcaster. and it's utterly hilarious when you hear it. So go on Twitter, you'll find it. Oh, it's an amazing home run. Why is the guy on first base? That's the best part of that whole thing. He thought a dude hit a home run and used superlatives, and he's like, what'd I get wrong? Why is the guy on first base? Because there's a fucking green monster that eats up balls, dude. What are you talking about? Open up your eyes. What are you talking about? Who's in the guy's ear? Was it some intern that was like looking at Snapchat for a second? You gotta be like, no, it's off the wall. Excuse me, off the wall. Just say, excuse me, it's off the wall. The green monster got it again. The best line of that whole thing, it gets me every time, is, what happened? What'd I get wrong? He's on first.
That was funny. I heard the call and I was like, "Ooh, that is bad.
That's
not good.
That's not good."
But like, it sounds like everybody, like even ESPN's call, like they got it wrong too. So I don't know if it was just like the way the ball looked going up against the wall, or just kind of the lighting in the stadium. But it sounds like everybody totally misread that and misplayed it.
And again, another thing, I'm impressed that Urban Meyer still knows the Shocker at his age.
Oh, bro,
dude. Uncle
My
Urban,
man.
You're like, go back with the team. You guys go home. I got things to take care of. Now, at first I thought, okay, it's innocent. You know, the girl's dancing. His hands are to himself. And then the next day it comes out and you saw the other photo where my man was all up in there with some interesting maneuvers there. I don't know if that's the Jacksonville Jaguar claw grip. I don't know if he learned something new there to try to use his digits to explore things. But that wasn't his wife, and his hands were going places that they should not have been going. But Uncle Urban, give you credit, man. You know how to handle your business. If this is some weird ploy to get you to USC, if you have the back channel roads to do it, if he ends up there, then it was the Shocker heard round the world. But Tony Khan, Shad Khan, you got some shit to deal with now. Oh my God, Uncle Urban, Jackhole of the Week. Make sure you follow Adam on Twitter at AdamRSTROZ. Follow the network at Detroit Podcast. Make sure if you agreed or disagreed with any of our takes, hit us up. Let us know what you think. Anywhere you listen to your favorite podcast, type in Detroit Sports Podcast, and all our daily content will find you. Leave us a review, and make sure you download, listen to everything that we do here. Dedicated podcast network to all things Detroit sports. Podcasting time is over. This podcast comes to a close. I can't wait to break down more and all the happenings in Detroit sports. We're getting ever so close, cuz October 30th could be 2 7-0 teams clashing. I can't wait. Thanks for the time, my man. I can't wait for next week.